If you like what you're about to hear, please consider leaving a review, or liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing on YouTube. I don't have a Patreon or enable ads for this, so if you really like Oldex, please do contact Games Workshop on social media or via email and tell them you want me to narrate their audiobooks for realsies. Oldex, Codex Chaos Space Marines, 4th edition, pages 52 and 53, Fabius Bile, written by Gav Thorpe and Alessio Cavatore, narrated by R.J. Bailey. With great thanks to Alistair for donating this copy of Codex Chaos Space Marines. Fabius Bile. Fabius Bile has travelled the galaxy more than any other lord of the traitor legions. On Dimamar, he is known as the Chem Master. On Arden 9 and in the Bray system, he is called Manflayer. To the wretched tribes living among the ravaged hives of Paramar 5, he is the Clone Lord. He calls himself Primogenitor, claiming that he has unlocked the secrets of the Emperor's work in the creation of the Primarchs and the first Space Marines. Bile's alchemical knowledge and skills at genetic manipulation can be attested to by every planet he has had contact with, for he has left a trail of foul deviance and twisted abominations wherever his ships have landed. His name has become a curse to the adepts of terror, as his pollution of mankind's gene pool has become ever more apparent. Whole populations have been wiped out by the Adeptus Astartes and Inquisition as they attempt to purge Bile's creations with fire and sword. Mostly, they find once civilized planets populated by ragged hordes of debased, shambolic monsters. Bile is a renegade even from his own legion. He held the position of lieutenant commander in the Emperor's Children at the time of the heresy. Perhaps it was during the debauched excesses of the Emperor's Children, during the attack on Earth, that Fabius Bile started along the dark pathway that would bring such woe to whole planetary populations. He was certainly foremost in experimenting on living prisoners, keeping them alive for weeks at a time. Even amidst the carnage of the heresy, his fascination was with life, not death. Bile aided the Emperor's Children as they slipped further into the embrace of Slanesh, altering their brain chemistry to sharpen their senses even further, connecting their pleasure centers more directly to their nervous systems, so that any stimulus would bring them unholy joy. Bile left Earth before Horus's defeat, accompanied by a retinue of altered followers. He moved through the war-torn Imperium, exchanging his services with rebel commanders for prisoners, genetic samples, and ancient technologies. Many ambitious overlords came to rue the day they let Bile experiment on their armies, until his acts of genocide and other atrocities sickened even the most deranged maniacs. Like most of the living flotsam and jetsam left after the Horus heresy, Bile eventually found his way to the Eye of Terror. Here, he found the traitor legions in disarray, warring amongst themselves. Forever an opportunist, Bile offered his services to the highest bidders, promising the vying champions a concoction of vile curses for their problems. Whilst moving from planet to planet, Bile's ship became trapped in the gravity well of one of the demon worlds, a crone world that had been the seat of the ancient Eldar Empire. Once it had been home to the brightest and best of the Eldar civilization. Now it was a darkened, twisted place of crawling madness, and it was here that Bile made his home. Most of Bile's experiments end with his subjects dead or so horribly disfigured and deformed They might wish for death, but in several battles, the Emperor's Space Marines have encountered fierce resistance from a hardened cadre of enhanced humans who fight with the strength and cunning of devils. These altered specimens of Bile's experimentation exhibit strength, speed, and intelligence many times greater than the human norm. These are Bile's proudest creations, the new man that forms the pinnacle of his foul art. All of man's worst traits have been bred into these creatures, married with the ambition of a tyrant and the physique of the most prized warriors. Fabius Bile would see these creations spread throughout the galaxy, leading rebellions and usurping rule from the imperial commanders. Even the Inquisition does not know how many of these abominations have escaped into the galaxy, but they do know they are almost impossible to locate until their incipient psychosis sends them on a manic killing spree. With such warriors at his command, it is no surprise that Fabius Bile is considered one of the direst threats the Imperium currently faces.
If a man dedicates his life to good deeds and the welfare of others, he will die unthanked and unremembered. If he exercises his genius, bringing misery and death to billions, his name will echo down through the millennia for 100 lifetimes. Infamy is always more preferable to ignominy.
Fabius Bile, at the desecration of Kansas 9. You have been listening to Oldex, Codex Chaos Space Marines, 4th edition, pages 52 and 53, Fabius Bile, written by Gav Thorpe and Alessio Cavatore, narrated by R.J. Bailey, with great thanks to Alistair for donating this copy of Codex Chaos Space Marines. Thank you to Gav Thorpe and Alessio Cavatore for writing the fiction I grew up with. If you've enjoyed this, please leave a review where you found it, or like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, depending how you're listening. I don't have a Patreon or enable ads for this, so if you really like Oldex, please do contact Games Workshop on social media or via email, and tell them you want me to narrate their audiobooks for realsies. This production, like all of Oldex, is entirely unofficial and uncommercial. From an out-of-print publication, is a derivative work with all copyrights owned by Games Workshop, and is a celebration of the hobby and lore I grew up with. If you have any suggestions for other old Codex fiction for me to narrate on this podcast, you can comment, contact me on Twitter at rjbailey, or email robertjbailey@gmail.com. Links are in the show description.